Aidan Stoltz is a senior at HHS and will be a 2024 Raider graduate. During his time at Hastings High School, he has participated in cross country, Nordic skiing, and track and field. In cross country, he's a 3-year letter winner, all conference his senior year, and captain of the team. In Nordic skiing, he's a 3-year letter winner and captain during his junior and senior year. Finally, in track and field, he's a 3-year letter winner while running the 800, 1 mile, and 2 mile races. Aidan gives an in-depth interview where he gives an amazing definition of success and how it applies to his life. All right, here we are with Aidan Stoltz. Aidan, I was starting at the beginning of someone's life, and the people I like starting off with then are your parents. So let's hear about your parents first, their names, occupations. Did they always live in Hastings, or did they eventually move to Hastings? So once again, let's hear about your life. And doing that, let's start off with your parents.
Okay. Starting off with my mom, Susan Stoltz. She grew up in Fargo, and she's a laboratory specialist right now. She hasn't done too many sports. And my dad, Rick Stoltz, he grew up in Caledonia, played football for the high school team there. They did pretty good.
Mhm.
And he is currently a general manager for a food company.
Nice. Yeah, Caledonia's got really good football. And I think they took a couple losses recently, but they had a huge streak where they didn't lose a game for a long time. So they're
Yep.
really good at football.
They did.
Yeah. So how did your parents meet, and when did they get to Hastings?
They met in Woodbury, I believe, and they were both working at Pizza Hut back then. And then
Nice.
they had Kyle. They needed to move houses, so they came to Hastings.
Right on. So pretty much you have lived in Hastings your whole life then.
Yep.
Nice. The next thing I always like hearing about then too is the schools you attended here in Hastings. You don't have to go through every single grade and every teacher, but if there's certain teachers at every level that had a big impact on your life, let's hear about those teachers. So starting off in elementary school, let's go to middle school, and now you're at Hastings High School. So once again, let's hear about those schools you attended, especially those teachers that had a really big impact on your life.
Okay. Yeah. First, I started out in Kennedy Elementary School, and the teachers I'd like to shout out are Mrs. Holt, third grade teacher, and Mrs. Mall, kindergarten teacher. They were just really nice.
Right on.
And middle school, I just went to Hastings Middle School, and I'd like to shout out Mr. Healy, most of my math teachers, Mr. Hansen. And there's 2 Mr. Hansens. They were both awesome. And one of them was at track. So that was nice because he encouraged me to do track.
And right now you're at Hastings High School. Any teachers that are having a really big impact on you so far at the high school level?
My favorite teacher this year is Mr. Olson. He's awesome. Favorite class too. I just love stats. And your class is amazing. I all my other health classes were boring, but yours is definitely different. Much more fun.
Try to make it fun every once in a while. You can't just keep on doing boring stuff every day, but I really appreciate that, Aidan. Thank you. One thing we did forget about with your background too is your brothers. You mentioned your older brother,
Oh,
Kyle. Let's hear
yes.
about Kyle, and let's hear about your younger brother as well. And then anyone else in your family that you would like to name as well when it comes to giving us background information on you.
Yeah, so Kyle, he did soccer at the start for I think 2 years. He was a captain for them. Then he switched to cross country. And I was on his team for about a year. He made a bunch of friends on that. Then he did Nordic, just like on a whim. He just went to a Nordic meeting last minute. That was like junior year or something. So he joined Nordic, which eventually encouraged me to join Nordic.
Mhm.
And then for spring, he's done track all 4 years. He's an 800 runner, mainly, so mid distance. And then Parker, he's just like me. He's done cross, Nordic, and track all of his years, except he's had one more year of Nordic.
Right on. So those are 3 sports. You're a 3-sport athlete right now at
Yep.
Hastings High School, like you just said, cross country, Nordic skiing, and track and field. A lot of people, like you just said too, don't really start Nordic at a younger age. So talk about the sports you played growing up
and then we could stop somewhere around 7th or 8th grade at that time.
Okay. I started out playing YMCA track and flag football. Those are really fun. I remember meeting a lot of new people there because it was just elementary school, a lot of newer people from other elementary schools. And I remember some kids on my team from back then. That was fun. And track, I was doing a lot of hurdles and long jump. I just remember picking up all the hurdles after I'd knock them down during the race. My parents always liked that.
For sure. So we can start with your sports career. I typically people that we have on here typically get into a JV or varsity level, maybe somewhere around 7th or 8th grade, definitely in 9th grade as well. So let's go through your high school career playing sports at Hastings High School. And once again, if you started playing at a JV or high school level, varsity level, early on or later on in middle school, I should say, early on in your high school career, we can name those years. If not, we could just start with 9th grade. And let's go through every season. So obviously, you play or you run cross country. I shouldn't say you play cross country. You run cross country. So let's hear about that season. And then we'll go from the fall to the winter to the spring. And we really like hearing about any accomplishments, personal and team, that come with each sport. So if you're a captain, if you place in the conference, honorable mention, all state qualifier, anything that goes along with that individually or with the team as well. So once again, let's hear about the first year you started playing at a high school
Ninth
level,
grade.
and we'll walk through those years from there.
Okay. So ninth grade cross country, that was a year with a lot of seniors on the team, including my brother. That was pretty good year. It's probably our second best year. And I was just learning the ropes. I was not very fast back then. And that's all I remember from that year. It wasn't
Mhm.
much. I was fairly fast though. Then Nordic, that was Kyle was still new to Nordic then too. So we were both learning it. I think I was in sections. I think I was last place, but track, I must have been doing long distance. That must have been like mile, 2 mile. Don't remember any of my times. That was a long time ago. So that was my ninth grade year. But 10th grade, um, that was a good year for cross. I started getting PRs. Kyle was gone, but the team was still good, very good. There was like one senior, Ty Bush, I think. Then Nordic, I was, I think, top 4 on the team. There weren't too many people on it. Seniors were gone. They were making up the bulk of the team. Tommy Siebenthaler had just left, I think. That was the year of COVID. It must have been, yeah. So there wasn't too much going on. We'd wear masks out on the skis. It was pretty tough. Then 10th grade track, I was still doing distance, mile, 2 mile, not too much improvement. Then 11th grade, cross country. That's where I was sick for about 2 months on and off every week. So I did not make any gains at all cross country. And I was slower by about 20 seconds. And I didn't race conferences or sections. And then moving on to Nordic, I was a captain that year because they were lacking seniors. So I was captain and times were pretty good. I was still coming off of just being out of shape from being sick last season. And so I didn't make too many gains, but it was still improvement. And then track, that was really fun. That was highlight so far. We had 4x8 teams. I started doing 800s, which is my favorite now. I'm less into long distance now, more into 800s. So we got a 4x8 team, like Parker McGinnis and then Noah Quigley. We all run 4x800s and long distance still, 1 mile, 2 mile. Now, senior cross country, I was a captain for cross country and huge improvement, by far the most improvement I've had. And I was all conference, so I got 10th place in conferences and in sections. That was my PR in conference. And then sections, I ran like 3 seconds slower. It was pretty muddy, so I'm still pretty proud. Sub 17, and I was about 15 seconds off from state, which is a bummer, but I wasn't expecting to get that far anyways, so I'm still proud.
So obviously, Nordic is just getting going here,
Yep.
right around the corner. We were talking before the podcast started here, before the interview started, that you really got to wait for the snowfall to come down, freezing temperatures, and get that snow going here before you can do a lot of training. You're doing some cross training right now. Let's talk about, let's preview the Nordic season. What are you expecting from the season? Some goals personally, individually. Let's hear about the Nordic season. And then if you would like to talk about the track and field season as well and preview that one, I know that's a ways away, but let's hear about your next 2 seasons during your senior year and really what you're expecting from them.
Sure. So, as I was saying before, the Nordic season generally plays off of how good you do in the cross season. So, because of I did pretty good in the cross season, so now I'm thinking I should be way better in Nordic. But it's also a lot of technique, so it's not all about um, endurance. But last year me and Noah Quigley, he's a teammate of mine. We're in all the same sports. So we, in sections, we're in a relay and we were about 2 minutes off from state, maybe a minute 30. So this year, I think we can maybe make it to state. That's what our goal
Mhm.
is. We have a real
Nice.
shot at it. We both improved a lot.
And then what about
And
track and field? What are you thinking about that as well?
for track, I've been starting to build a 4x8 team in hopes that's our best shot at getting some points in conference or sections. State's a stretch, but could get there, but it's probably most likely going to happen in a singular 800. That's my most likely option for that.
Gotcha. Hey, let's circle back to junior year here real quick. I really talk about a lot with my athletes. Hopefully I talk about it a lot in my health classes, learning from failures, learning from setbacks as well. So I think it's pretty interesting with your story, Aiden. You talked about that cross country season, your junior year, being really sick on and off and really not making any gains. Then a year later, you go into your senior year and you have one of the most phenomenal seasons of your sports career so far with that cross country season during your senior year. Talk about that junior year. If there's anything with it that really helped propel you into that senior year, did you learn anything from that junior year being sick and really not trying to, or really not performing at all or being able to compete or anything else that you, once again, learned from that year that really helped propel you into that senior year?
Yeah, so in the start of the junior year, I was just really sad that I couldn't do anything because I never was able to do any. I couldn't run because my throat would hurt too much and my
Mhm.
lungs would they would just be in too much pain. So I just lost everything I'd been training for and all my life, I guess it had been because I've been running my whole life. So I was getting really sad because of that. And then Nordic came around. I was getting over the sickness. So I was training on skis, trying to get my endurance back. And it felt good. I was finally doing something, nothing crazy, but it felt good. Didn't make all conference, didn't get some sections, didn't do too well. Mess off some handoffs. But then in track, that's when everything started getting better. I was starting to get back and it felt really good. I was making PRs. I started 800s. They were much better. I don't need as much endurance for 800s, so that's one thing. But my endurance was getting back to my peak, and I made some really great friends in track season as well. So that was great.
Mhm. For sure. I know hearing from what you just said too, it just really stinks when you see your friends competing in a sport and you just aren't really able to compete with them at that time due to sickness on your part, injury on other people's part. So it's really hard to watch your friends compete and maybe reach their PRs and see how they're doing. And you are just watching from the sideline too. So it's really hard. But I really appreciate you talking about that too, where you can learn and grow and then come back for more later on. And it still doesn't define you, that sickness or injury and that kind of stuff, where you can actually perform later on too. So it's pretty cool to hear you talk about that.
Mhm.
So let's talk about you as a student athlete a little bit more. You're a three-sport athlete. We only have a few three-sport athletes here at Hastings High School. So why is being a three-sport athlete super important to you, and especially just being a student athlete? Why is that something that's really important to you in your life, Aiden?
I think it's important for people to have something in their life that they can work for other than grades. It's something that I can work on while also it has other benefits. Like I can get healthier and make friends that make me who I am.
For sure. What about maybe a favorite moment so far as a Raider athlete? You talked about last year, this year, actually, not last year, this year, captain of the cross country team, all conference, and having a phenomenal cross country season. Anything else that really stands out so far as a favorite moment so far playing sports for Hastings High School?
Yeah, my favorite moment was definitely conference this year in cross. I was running and my previous PR wouldn't put me, it put me like in 15th, 20th round. So I was thinking, all right, I'll have to stick behind the pack. But for the first half of the race, I was with the leading pack, the people who had been looking up to as a freshman. And it just felt weird out. We were running so fast and I could see the front person. I could sprint up to him if the race was ending right there. So that felt a little bit weird because I've always looked up to those runners in the top 10, and now I was part of that team.
For sure. What about success? We hear about success all the time. Mr. Hanson, our AD, really challenges us coaches every single year to define success, how we're going to measure success during our sports seasons. So we like turning that around on you guys who we have on here and have you define success. So how would you define success in your life, Aiden?
Success is getting better because you have more determination and more motivation to train harder than your opponent.
I like that. Say that one more time. I really like that one a lot,
It's getting better because you have more determination and more motivation to train harder than your opponent.
for sure. And do you think that pretty much defines you as well, where you have continued to make progress throughout your 4 years at Hastings High School, where you are just continuing to train and get better every single season?
Yep, that would be mainly my senior year, mainly summer. I was running a lot during the summer, which I had never done before, and it really showed.
Mhm. Nice. So right now you're a senior. You still have 2 more sports seasons to get through here at Hastings High School. Any college plans to play sports? Or if not, we could talk about college plans as well, where you're going and what your major might look like as well. So what does that look like for you?
Well, I've planned to attend the University of Minnesota Twin Cities for computer engineering, and I'm thinking about joining the running club, which does race D2 and D3 schools, and possibly doing a skiing club, downhill or Nordic, because I'm interested in both. And I'm also going to be weightlifting.
Wonderful. I like that. I've had you in class a few times here, and I know weightlifting is very important to you as well. I have you in health and lift class, I believe, right?
Yep, that's right.
Perfect. All right, it's all coming back here, Aiden. With cross country, Nordic, and track and field, I know a lot of the coaches really bleed over into a lot of the other sports as well. So right now we got Coach Rebay. You probably had Coach Dewall back in the day too. And you've had a lot of the same coaches for different sports, but especially with track and field, there's a lot of different coaches that are involved in track and field as well. So the next question, I always say that is probably an impossible question to answer, thinking about the best coach that you've ever had. So if you would like to name a couple different people, since you're a multi-sport athlete, you're definitely allowed to do. Once again, who do you think that best coach would be so far in your life?
Best coach in my life, I'll say, is Joe Rebay. He's coached me in all my sports the last few years since Dewall has retired. Dewall didn't have me that much. He was very influential in Nordic, but now Joe Rebay is taking over, and I chose him because he's determined how high I go in my high school career, and he will determine how high I will go. And so far, it's got me pretty far.
Nice. Next one, very similar question. Think about the guys that you're running with or skiing with as well. I know you're in an interesting spot where your brother Kyle was a few years older than you. So when you were that young athlete, you were able to look up to your brother and really model a lot of your actions or habits off of your older brother. So that was pretty neat. So if you would like to talk about him, that'd be awesome. Or if you have another athlete that you've been running with, skiing with, anything like that that you've really looked up to, that's really the best teammate in your life, who do you think that would be?
I think Noah Quigley is my most valuable teammate. We've always been in the same sports, except for 1 year of Nordic he was in downhill skiing. And I've always been able to rely on him for anything sports related. And now we're best friends. We're gonna be dorming together next year, so it's
Nice.
it's really made a difference.
Awesome. I always like the next question I ask here, especially depending on the sport. And if it's an alumni from back in the day, if it's a current athlete, it always changes per sport and per decade as well. So I always like hearing about a particular opponent or an event that you really look forward to. With the sports you play, cross country, Nordic, and track and field, it's really not so much about the opponents, I would say, with
Yeah.
the events that you run. So conference meet, a section meet is really important in your guys' uh, sporting career. So if you want to talk about one of those events, that'd be great. Or once again, you could determine or you could decide any single thing that you wanted to that is that event or an opponent that really brings out the best in you. You're a multi-sport athlete, Aiden. You could pick a couple different events too if you want to talk about them. So what do you think that event or opponent would be in your life?
I got two events. I always look forward to the Nordic sections because it's unique. It's me and Noah doing a sprint relay, which you don't really do during the year. You always just do a 5K. So now we're going to be sprinting on the skis, going really fast. And we got a shot at going to state this year if we don't mess up the handoffs, which we were falling down last year. It's pretty bad, but we got potential there. I also look forward to track in general because I recently picked up running 800s, and now we're piecing together a 4x8 team, which we're trying to train all of us together. We got 5 guys. One of them's just gonna have to do a regular 800, but we're hoping to train them and get them fast enough to get some points in conference.
For sure. Last thing here before we get to our last couple questions, we really like hearing about improvement process and how you've made improvements from year to year. And that's exactly what you've done too here, Aiden. Every single year, you've made improvements on improvements. You just talked about last year, a lot of training during the summer, running during the summer, and you saw a huge improvement from your junior year to your senior year in cross country. And you also talked about weightlifting is very important to you as well, getting stronger. So talk about your improvement process and any other strategies that you've really employed in your life that have gotten you better at sports.
Well, I've always gotten better by just wanting it. Like from my junior year in cross, I was down. I wasn't training, just couldn't. But I wanted something to happen in Nordic and I started training hard. And this year it's different. We got a shot at going to state. So me and Noah have been training before the season started, like 3 weeks before it started. We've been skiing out on the roads. And I think the younger years, I've just lacked the want to do better. So I think it'll be different this year.
Perfect. The last couple questions we always end with advice for parents, coaches, and student athletes. The first group we always look at is parents and coaches. Thinking back on the last 4 years, Aiden, you're a three-sport athlete competing in cross country, Nordic skiing, and track and field. If you had to give advice to parents and coaches from your experiences, what would it be?
For my coach, I would say that keep pushing people to be not lazy, but also be nice to keep them in the sport. Because sometimes they give up easily and it's no fun when they do that. And I would also say try and give them something they can fight for because some don't know what they want for sport. Give them something that they can see clearly and they can work for and achieve it. And for student athletes, my advice would be all you need is motivation to train harder than your opponent. And when the competition comes, you will be ready. And also, you're not in the sport for the times you're in it. You're in it for the experience. Keep living through the experience.
Perfect. Aiden, that's all the questions I got for you tonight. The last thing I always do is just turn the microphone over to our guest. Anything else you want to get off your chest? Any other questions I forgot to ask you? Any shout outs you want to give? Like I said, the microphone is yours and you can go for it.
I'd like to shout out Parker McGinnis, Aaron Herber, Max Albertson, Ty Bushinsky, Noah Quigley. They've all made me who I am right now, and they've made me run harder because they were there for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Aiden.